Why the most dangerous person is the one who almost changed. There is a type of person most people never think to be careful around. Not the one who is openly corrupt. Not the one who has never tried to be better. Not the one whose flaws are visible and predictable. The most dangerous person in any room is not the one who never tried to change. It's the one who almost did. Almost changing is like standing halfway across a bridge between two versions of yourself. You can still see exactly where you came from, and you can clearly see where you could go. But instead of finishing the crossing, you turn around, carrying everything you learned about the other side with you. That person, the one with the map but without the commitment, is more unpredictable, more capable, and more difficult to navigate than almost anyone else you will ever encounter. Psychologist Roy Baumeister called this the moral licensing effect. When people believe they have made progress toward being good, they often give themselves permission to be less good. One step forward quietly authorizes a step back. But the most dangerous version of this effect isn't the person who takes one step back after one step forward. It's the person who walked halfway toward transformation, understood exactly what it looked like, and then turned around with all of that knowledge still intact. Today, we need to talk about why. What almost changed actually means. First, it's important to understand what almost changed actually looks like, because it rarely looks like failure. It looks like the person who went to therapy for a year, made genuine breakthroughs, understood their patterns with remarkable clarity, and then quietly stopped going. Not because they ran out of insight, because the insight became uncomfortable. It looks like the leader who read extensively about integrity, authenticity, and servant leadership could speak about those concepts with genuine depth, and still chose self-interest every time the stakes were real. It looks like the person in your life who has told you, more than once, that they know they need to change, who has described their own flaws with disarming accuracy, who has shown you, briefly, what they could become, and then retreated. Almost changed is not ignorance. It is not lack of effort. It is the specific condition of having seen the other side clearly enough to describe it, and choosing not to fully cross over. And that specific condition creates something quietly dangerous: the knowledge they carry. Here is what makes the almost changed person different from someone who never tried. Someone who never attempted growth is, in a strange way, limited by their own blind spots. They don't know what they don't know. Their patterns are visible, their reactions predictable, their weaknesses readable from a distance. The almost changed person has no such limitations. They have studied their own darkness long enough to understand it and recognize it in others. They have learned the language of growth, the architecture of trust, the specific vulnerabilities that open people up. And they carry all of that knowledge without being bound by the commitments that usually come with it. Think about what that combination actually means. They know how to appear trustworthy because they have studied what trustworthiness looks like. They know how to signal growth because they have experienced its early stages firsthand. They know which emotional buttons to press because they have spent time examining their own. The person who never tried to change is working in the dark. The almost changed person is walking through the world with a map, a seduction of their potential. There is something else that makes them difficult to see clearly. And it is one of the most underestimated dangers of all. They are genuinely compelling. Because they have touched transformation, even partially, there is something real in them that draws people in. When they speak about growth, about struggle, about the difficulty of becoming better, they are not performing. They have lived those things. The resonance is authentic. This is what makes them so persuasive. They don't have to manufacture credibility. They have earned fragments of it through real experience. And those fragments are enough to build trust, inspire loyalty, and position themselves as someone worth following. But here is the problem. Because they have not fully committed to the change they began, they are not bound by its obligations. They can invoke the language of growth when it serves them and abandon it the moment it doesn't. They can offer genuine insight with one hand and serve their own interests with the other. And because their insight feels so real, most people never notice the difference. They exist in the space between who they were and who they could have been. And that space, it turns out, is one of the most powerful places a person can operate from. The internal war and what it produces. What most people don't see is what's happening inside. The almost changed person is not at peace. They are living in a state of permanent internal tension, pulled forward by the vision of who they could become and pulled back by the gravity of who they have always been. That tension never fully resolves. It just becomes a constant background noise that shapes everything they do. They know exactly what it would take to become better because they almost did it. And out of that tension, something unexpected emerges: sharpness. Because they are constantly negotiating between two versions of themselves, they develop an acute awareness of human behavior. They can read a room with precision. They can sense when someone is performing versus when they are genuine. They can anticipate reactions, calibrate their approach, and adjust their presentation in real time. These are not small skills. In relationships, in business, in leadership, these abilities represent a significant edge. And unlike someone who developed them through genuine transformation, the almost changed person is not constrained by the ethical framework that transformation usually installs. They have the tools without the guardrails. Why they are so hard to see coming. The fully corrupt person is, in their own way, readable. Their motivations are consistent. Their behavior follows recognizable patterns. Once you understand what they want, you can anticipate what they will do. The almost changed person offers no such clarity. On any given day, they might act with genuine integrity. They might show up with real kindness, authentic generosity, actual wisdom. Because those qualities are not entirely absent in them. They are just unreliable. They appear when conditions favor them and disappear when they don't. This inconsistency is not a weakness. It is their greatest source of power. Because people around them keep updating their assessment. Every moment of genuine goodness resets the clock. Every authentic gesture rebuilds the trust that the last betrayal eroded. The people closest to them spend years in a cycle of hope and disappointment they can never quite explain. Because the person they love is genuinely good, sometimes. Just not reliably. Just not when it costs something real. That unpredictability, built on a foundation of real but incomplete transformation, is structurally difficult to defend against. What this means for you? There are two reasons this matters. The first is external. The people in your life who are most capable of genuine harm are rarely strangers. They are the ones who showed you enough of their potential to earn your trust, and enough of their old patterns to keep you uncertain. Learning to see that combination clearly, the insight without the commitment, the language without the follow-through, is one of the most important skills you can develop. The second reason is internal, and this one is harder to sit with. Because most people, if they are honest, have been the almost changed person at some point. Have understood something about themselves with perfect clarity and chosen, quietly, not to act on it. Have seen who they could become and found reasons, good-sounding reasons, to stay where they were. The almost changed person is not a villain in someone else's story. They are a warning about a very human tendency, the tendency to acquire the knowledge of transformation without paying its full price. And the question that matters most isn't whether someone else in your life fits this description. It's whether, in some area of your own life, you do. The last thing. Almost changing is dangerous because it gives you the knowledge of transformation without its discipline. But that same knowledge carries a quiet power. Because the person who almost changed already knows the path. They just have to decide to walk it. The bridge is still there. The other side hasn't moved. Stop standing in the middle. Finish the crossing. If this made you think of someone, or made you think of yourself, tell me in the comments. I'm curious which part resonated most. And if you want more ideas like this, subscribe. There's a lot more coming.